I realized like I don't need to lose my feminine side.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be loud in the boardroom. You know, I can be just as soft-spoken and have this quiet strength.
Yeah.
And let them underestimate me. That's totally fine with me.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Against All Odds. I'm your host, Yris Palmer. I'm very excited for today's guest. I am joined by the incredible Sapana Grossi. She's a business attorney and founder of the Los Angeles law firm. I'm going to butcher the name. Say the name for me.
Shah Grossi Law Firm.
Shah Grossi Law Firm. Mm-hmm. She represents legacy brands, public figures, high net worth individuals, and founders. She's actually one of my lawyers too. She's been my business attorney for the past,
almost 10 years.
10 years?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yep.
I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. Thank you for joining and being here. Have you done many podcasts before?
I haven't. This is actually my first.
Oh my God, I'm popping your podcast cherry. Before we get into your story, I like to kick things off with a little icebreaker. I'm so big on astrology. I'm a Taurus and you're a Sag.
I am.
I love Sag. My mom's a Sag. My moon's a Sag. I feel like Sag people are so full of like light and fun.
Yes.
But I'm going to read you some Sag facts and then you tell me if they resonate with you or they do not.
Sure.
Some Sagittarius facts are they are brutally honest and can never be fake. Either loves you or ignores you. They're so fun until they've had enough. Loves freedom more than routine. Moves on fast if they feel disrespected. Values energy over words. And needs mental stimulation more than attention.
I would say 100% on every single one of those.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've known you for so long and I feel like that is so you.
It is. Yeah. What you see is what you get. Very independent. Love expanding my world. I've always loved living a bigger world. Very loyal. Very protective.
So loyal.
Yeah.
So I like to give people a little BTS of how we met. So I can't even remember how we met.
Well, we were franchising your concept.
Yeah, but who referred me to you?
Oh, gosh.
I think it was Isabel. No, I referred Isabel to you.
Correct. Correct.
I don't even know how we met.
I think it was from one of your entertainment attorney. Who contacted me.
Yeah. So I have multiple lawyers for different things. So I have an entertainment lawyer, Rossi, who referred Sapana to us for all my business things. So she does anything with when I'm investing in companies, from starting businesses. Like she is my go-to business lawyer for everything. And I love that she's a woman. She fights so hard. She's so knowledgeable in every aspect. And I've also referred her so many people. But I'm always like, remember, you're my lawyer first.
My allegiance is to you. Yes.
But I'm so inspired because you're such a powerful woman in this industry. And I feel like most lawyers are men. So I feel like when I see a woman in any space that's dominated by men, I have so much respect. But I want to talk a little bit about your story. So bring me back to how you got started. Actually, bring me back to your childhood. Like, did you always want to be a lawyer? Did you come from a family of lawyers? Like, what's your background?
Yeah, good question. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, first generation American. My family is Indian, so I have Indian parents. My father is a dentist, and my mother stayed at home to take care of us. But she was the disciplinarian, so she was very strict. She wanted us to always be very polished, have high standards, very ethical. And my father actually had a different kind of strength. He had this quiet confidence about him, very hardworking. Still, he's about 80 now, getting close to 80, and still working, every single day, 6 days a week as a dentist. Never has complained. What's that?
I said your teeth are great.
Oh, thanks. Never has complained, a day in his life. And so I think with the combination of both my parents, that gave me the solid foundation of discipline and hard work and grit. So, yeah.
When did you decide you were going to pursue law?
Yeah. So I think growing up, it was just sort of, for me, it's not something I thought about. I think it was something that I just assumed I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps. I thought that I would, be a dentist. And then I went to UCLA. I went there for undergrad, and I realized I really loved reading and writing and English literature, Russian literature, psychology, philosophy, just learning human behavior. And so I loved that. And I thought law would be a good fit. And so I remember the defining moment, though, was when I was working with the UCLA Law School on this post 9/11 commission that they had on human rights. And at that point, I realized how powerful law is because I could see how law was affecting change across societies. And just depending on what kind of advocacy you had, it could make or break you. And so I really fell in love with law at that point. And so I decided to pursue law instead of dentistry.
What did your parents say when you were like, I'm going to pursue law?
It was just something that they didn't really understand fully because I come from a family of medicine and dentists and pharmacists. And so I think they realized, though, it was an informed decision, and I was always very independent anyways. I was going to do it. So
yeah, you were like, I'm just letting you know.
I'm just letting you know, giving you notice.
And then there's so many different kinds of laws.
Yeah.
How did you decide what to focus on? Or was it something that you like fell into?
No. Well, I tried many different things. So I did clerk for a judge. And then after clerking, I worked for a real estate boutique law firm that was in litigation. And then eventually I worked for a firm that really wanted us to have a working knowledge in various areas. So I did Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and I did family law. And then at some point, I started working in intellectual property, and I started working with technology and founders. And then that really felt like home because I was working with people, and I was helping people start brands and grow brands and scale them. So it had that human connection, which I really loved. So then, yeah, that sort of like started my path. And then I started then franchising, and organically I fell into this position of being outside general counsel to companies.
You're the best. She's truly the best.
Oh, thank you.
So I know like the bar exam is the hardest thing to pass. Did you pass it on the first time?
Oh yeah, I did.
Of course you did.
Well, I did Georgia. So I went to law school in Georgia. And so I have the Georgia bar and then the California bar as well.
Wow. So after you passed the bar exam, how did you start building your company and making those relationships with your clients?
Yeah. So after I passed the bar, I did do clerkships, and I worked with different types of firms. So I worked with a small boutique litigation firm. I practiced litigation for almost 10 years. And then I worked for a company where they really wanted us to have a working knowledge in many different areas. So mid-sized firms and larger firms. But it was in 2014 is when I started my own firm, the Shah Grossi Law Firm. And I think that is when I had certain relationships, and I was very fortunate to have public figures and more established companies retain me at that point. And I just remember I was really grinding all day and night, really just making sure everything I did was for them. I was fully devoted, and I wanted to just make sure I did everything correctly. And I think I had tremendous success at that time. And then that just organically grew my company. In fact, I think it sort of outpaced my infrastructure because I didn't even have an office at that point. And so I said, maybe I should get an office and a website and some business cards. So it's just, I really hustled, and I just worked really hard.
Yeah. And obviously everything's relationships, and
totally,
you're so word of mouth. Like we refer you to so many people.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of I feel like once you're in a certain circle and they trust you, you just become the person that they refer the next person to. Yeah. How does retaining clients in high income tax brackets differ from retaining average clients?
Well, I think that it's one of those things that I take all matters exactly the same. But for sure, with high stakes matters, when you're dealing with a lot of money, obviously the stakes are real. I totally recognize that. I look at it from the lens of almost like stewardship, and that's something that I think I grew up with, where I take ownership of my clients' matters. I take full responsibility. And so I think that for me, I work really hard. I'm fully devoted to my clients to make sure that everything I do for them is going to end in success. And the other thing I think about is motherhood, because I think, and I'm sure you would agree, that once you become a mother, I think it really teaches you to become a leader, because now for the first time you're facing humility. You realize things are out of your control, and I have goosebumps.
No, it's so true.
You have to just stay calm in unpredictable situations. You have more empathy. So I think I think it was motherhood that really taught me to be a leader.
Yeah, motherhood brings out so many things in you that you just didn't even know were there, right?
Absolutely.
And you start to see life through a whole different lens. I always say my life started when I had my daughter.
Yes.
I'm what was I doing before? My POV was so different.
Yeah. You can't remember life before having children.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now, speaking of you being referred to so many people, I feel like I've learned so much business wise from you. So for anyone wanting to start a business, what is 2 things or 3 things that you would suggest that they do, a little checklist before starting a business?
Yeah, good question. So I would say the first thing you really want to do is think about what the goals are for the company, right? So do you want to keep it a closely held company? Do you want to keep it local? Or do you want to expand nationally, internationally? Do you want to raise money from friends and family, or maybe institutional capital? Because that's going to then determine what kind of entity you form and where you form it. So it could be where, the state where you operate, or it could be a Delaware corporation, or it could be Nevada, Wyoming in some cases, or Texas. So that's the first step, really determine what the goals are for the company. And then what leads next then is what type of organizational documents you need. So is it going to be an operating agreement that you need, partnership agreement, shareholder agreements? And then think about your IP. So you want to make sure you protect your intellectual property. So you're doing potentially formal registrations through your entity that you've now formed. You want to assign any intellectual property that you've already been working on, and you want to assign it to the company. You want to have insurance. You want to have...
That's the biggest one, you guys, insurance.
That's huge. People don't realize that when they think about the
right
legal
insurance
checklist.
Too. There's so many different types of insurance.
Correct. So make sure you fully, describe your business needs and goals to the broker. And then one thing I want to flag that's very important is now with e-commerce sites or physical storefronts, so essentially public-facing companies, you really want to make sure you're fully accessible. And what I mean by that is that you are giving equal access to people with disabilities and special needs. It's always been an issue, but I think now it's such a big topic and a lot of litigation that you see in this area. So now I've sort of bumped that up as my initial checklist item.
Yeah. What's one mistake that you see business owners make?
Well, I've seen several, but I would say a big one that I see is not thinking about business succession. So in other words, when you form a company and you start your business, I think people are so focused on growing the company that they don't think about the ultimate goals. So in their minds, they might be thinking about, well, one day I'm going to pass my business on to my children or to certain key employees, but that's in their head. It's living in their head. They haven't papered that. And so you want to make sure that you have certain buy-sell provisions and certain rights in your governing documents to pass the business on. And you may want to incentivize certain key employees to stay with you and with the business so that transition is smooth. So that's very important. Another, business issue that I see a lot is raising capital. So a lot of times people think that you might have certain issues with your business and now I'm going to go out and raise money and that's going to solve all my problems. But actually, in that situation, a lot of times you're exacerbating and exposing the problems. You're making it worse.
So bringing on more people,
more capital, everything's just exponentially, it's magnified. And so you want to make sure that your core business economics work before you start raising money. So.
I want to talk a little bit about investing too, because when I want to invest in a business, I'll send it to you and I'm like, hey, I'm interested. Can you look at the paperwork? I don't really know what, I know you're looking at numbers and stuff, but what really are you paying attention when you're telling me, I think this is a good business for you to invest in?
Yeah.
Could you just share for people that want to invest?
Yeah. There are a lot of elements to that, right? Because there is just different components of due diligence that we do. So that's typically the first phase. You want to see what the liabilities and the risks are of the business. You look at the valuation, obviously the numbers. And a lot of times you or other clients of mine will be working with a financial advisor on some of the numbers. But really the first thing I look at is to determine if someone is going to acquire a business, whether it's something that can really withstand the transition, right? So let's say you have a brand or a company very successful. You have to look at whether the success is based on the brand itself or is it the individual seller. And so if the seller is now leaving, how do you know it's going to remain successful, during that transition? So I always look at what's remaining with the business. Is it going to be the key assets? Are all the contracts that business currently has, are they all going to stay in place? Right. So you need to make sure all of that. And the first 90 days really are the most important. So
of the company
after the transition, right? Post-closing. So think about those first 90 days. What do you need in place for that to be successful? And a lot of times you want the founder or the seller to be involved and help with that transition.
Yeah. So, do you feel like a business does better when it's founder forward?
It could be, but if you're now acquiring that business and the founder is not involved, so, in those cases, if it's founder forward, you probably want to retain the founder and have that individual be part of the business moving forward. So,
how different is opening a business from a franchise?
Okay, so that's paperwork.
Different.
Yeah, it's very different. So let's say you, from the franchisor's perspective, you already have a successful business, and now you're thinking of franchising, right? So that's the typical progression. In those cases, you have to remember that when you're selling a franchise, you're selling a system. And so you've taken everything you've learned from your business and packaged it up in this operations manual. You have everything set forth in there. You've done quality control. You have your financials. You have your IP. And now you're giving it to someone else who can take it and run a business. And so that's very different from opening a second location that you might be involved in. So if you're already running a business and it relies on you to be there in order for it to be successful, then you're probably not ready to franchise, right? And then from the franchisee's perspective, it's also different because you now are tied to certain restrictions, right? So you're signing the franchise disclosure document and the franchise agreement, and you have a number of restrictions in there. So you're going to be assigned, a certain territory, and you want to make sure that no one can expand in your territory, including the franchisor. You are going to want to make sure you have certain rights, that you can use other vendors. You don't necessarily need to purchase inventory from the franchisor. You have transfer rights, you have exit rights, renewal rights. All of these really are important because it affects your bottom line. Very different from operating, a standalone independent business.
Day and night.
Yes.
And then thinking about today's digital age, because it's huge, protecting intellectual property has never been more important. Can you explain what that is for listeners who are unclear? And then can you tell us how we can go about protecting ours?
Yeah. So intellectual property really could be anything from trademarks to copyrights to patents. These are items that you would register formally. And so if you are a brand and you have your company company name, or you have a slogan, you have certain items that you're selling that you want to protect the name in a specific category and you don't want others to use it, you would file for formal registrations. And you would do that with the USPTO. And you would ideally make sure that you're doing that through the entity, so the entity holds that asset.
So I also want to talk about AI and ChatGPT because I feel like everybody is using that. So I feel like a lot of business owners and people, I mean, I use it myself, but like we're going there for the answer. So like how much has that complicated life for you?
I like how you say complicated. Well, it's a double-edged sword, because in many cases, I like the fact that my clients are so well informed before I consult with them, because now they know how to articulate their concerns and they have already done their diligence. So I love that aspect of it. But a lot of times they don't know the difference between what's accurate and what's less accurate, right? Because how would they know? They have no clue.
Right.
And so recently I think about this M&A transaction that I had where we had the buyer and the seller both putting every single email, every item of the contract into chat, which is good. They should be informed. But it was essentially the seller's AI and the buyer's AI really fighting with each other.
Oh my God.
So it really dragged out the transaction. And so the attorneys were aligned. I was aligned, with my counterpart. And we were like, we need to close this because these are not material issues.
Yeah.
But it's like convincing, the client.
Welcome to 2026.
It is. It's a new concern.
Does it ever scare you that people, with the way AI is going and ChatGPT and everything, that people may just resort to asking just AI instead of hiring like an actual lawyer for the information?
Yeah, it's never, I haven't really been nervous about that. Maybe I should be, but in my experience, so far, it has really not changed the course of my work and the clients that I have. And I know all of my clients are very proficient in Claude and ChatGPT and things like that. I can see it and they send me their research. But it really hasn't impacted my work. And I think more than anything, I also embrace the tools, and there's a lot of, legal tools in the AI world. So I feel like, if anything, it's been helpful for everyone to be more efficient, and it has not replaced the work and the value that I provide to my clients. They'll just do their research, they'll send it to me, and in many cases, it's wrong, and you still need human judgment and experience really to tell you which direction to go. People still want...
it is wrong a lot of the times.
It is wrong many times. I mean, it's going to get better. And let's just say it's 100% accurate. Eventually it will be. But even in those cases, I think people want to run their ideas by somebody with tremendous experience and have, especially someone that they have, trust in and comfort in. And I think that that's very valuable, that AI doesn't currently provide.
Yeah, I agree. And then mergers and acquisition is another area you help your clients with.
Yeah.
What are some tips you can give listeners who are thinking about acquiring a business?
So it could be either a stock sale or an asset sale. And a lot of times as a buyer, so you're trying to acquire, you're going to want to do an asset sale because you may not want to purchase the entity. You don't know what liability. You're just going to have to do much more due diligence to make sure that there's no risks and liabilities that remain with the business. But oftentimes you may not have an option, and you need to do an actual stock sale instead, because you need to keep the entity the same, because that entity has certain contracts with different partners or different vendors, and those cannot be changed. You cannot change that to a new entity that you might have. So in those cases, you might have to still continue to do a stock sale.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just from your background and dealing with so many businesses being acquired and the whole process, what is the time frame that somebody is looking at? Because it's not fast in my experience.
It could be relatively slow. I think it really depends on how organized the business is, okay? Because if you don't have things papered up, if you have certain IP that's held in the wrong company, you don't, you have employees that are working there, but you haven't protected the company enough. There is a lot that needs to be done in the due diligence phase that can really, take time. And sometimes the actual purchase and sale documents or investment documents may not take as much time, is the due diligence phase. So it can range. I mean, it can range between, a couple of months to
a year,
to almost a year. Yeah, I've seen a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it depends, who the acquiring party is, right? So like, for example, I was working on a transaction where it was a French, corporation coming in and acquiring a domestic company here, and they just do things a little bit differently. So that was actually faster.
And I know personally, I'm not going to say the names of the brands, but I know personally you had a case where you went up against a really big fashion brand and you won.
Yeah.
But like, what is that? Do you ever get like, does it ever intimidate you going against such a big household name? And then you?
And then it's me.
And then cute little you.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I think early on in my career, absolutely, I was definitely more aware of that for sure, especially since most of the time on the other side of the transaction is someone who's older and male. And then there's me, and so for sure. But I think now, with experience, I've realized like I don't need to lose my feminine side.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be loud in the boardroom. I can be just as soft-spoken and have this quiet strength.
Yeah.
And let them underestimate me. That's totally fine with me.
Yeah.
So,
and you look perfect when you do it. I love that.
Thank you.
How do you remain so feminine and soft in like such a world where it's so dominant and so like firm,
Well, I think I've been in those transactions where I've seen those the male attorneys on the other side, and a lot of times I'm not impressed. Of course I am, a lot of times I am impressed, but a lot of times I haven't been. And I just realized if I'm more prepared and I've done my homework, why should I change? I don't need to change.
You're so poised.
Thank you. I think it comes from my upbringing. But yeah, I love beautiful things, and I'm not going to, shy away from that just because I love beauty.
Yeah, so. I love that. So I know firsthand how hard it is to balance being a mother and a business owner. So tell me how you balance being this amazing lawyer and being a mommy.
Yeah. Loaded question. And it's always changing, but I would say, well, I think that's really what taught me to be a leader in the first place. But I think now, just on a day-to-day basis, it's really something where you're just every day is different and you're just balancing, and I want to provide my children with everything and all the opportunities. And I mean, I think about last month where I was traveling in Italy and working on this M&A transaction that had to close, and you do what you have to do, So we went to Saturnia, we were at the hot springs, and I was, on my computer and working on the M&A deal, and, getting a hotspot in the car, traveling through Tuscany and stopping at, I don't know if you've been to the Autogrills off the highway, but like every one of those Autogrills is a satellite office for me. So you do what you can.
Yeah, and every day is truly different.
Is different. Yeah. Your children are growing. You go with the flow. Then the needs are different. You try to, set a schedule, and it's going to be unpredictable. And I work at all hours. So it's not like I have set hours, at all. So every transaction's different. The needs are different. So I work whenever I need to work. You just make it happen.
How old are your kids?
So my oldest is 10, Massimo. My second child is 8. His name is Rian. And then my girl is Simona. She's 4.
I'm so happy you got your girl. I mean, I love, there's nothing like boy love.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that boy love is so crazy.
Yes.
But a girl is like your best friend for life.
Totally.
And it's so nice to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And I know that you see that as well. I see these videos of your daughter. Oh my God, it's adorable. I think my daughter's a lot like yours, actually.
Oh, it's
very feminine.
So girly.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait till she's playing in your closet. That's like so fun.
Oh, she started like when she was 1. Yeah. And it's not, I mean, I know I'm feminine, but I've never taught that to her. And I guess they learn a lot by watching, but she's far more feminine than I am.
Always say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, totally.
At all.
Totally.
It's like right there.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like being a mother and a working a woman, a team is everything. Do you have a team within your business that, or actually outside of your business too, like at home? Do you have a nanny? Do you have like who's helping you? Who's your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So personally, on the personal side, so my husband has his own marketing company as well. And so he's very hands-on. So he's very much like me. He works at all hours. And so he assists, quite a bit. And then the kids are in school full time. And we did have a nanny, in different phases of my children's lives, but now they're just in school all the time.
School's amazing.
School's amazing. Love school. And then on the professional side, yes. So I have, a team, small team, but they're all specialists. So I have someone who specializes in intellectual property, one that works on M&A deals, one that does litigation exclusively. So for me, that has always been, I think, the way that works best for the clientele that I have, where I have individuals that are specialists and have been doing it for years. I mean, in some cases, I've had partners from large law firms that now are part of my team that assist in the various areas that they're specialized in. So rather than, hiring younger attorneys, I've always wanted to work with older attorneys.
Yeah, that are specialists.
They're specialists,
that's
correct.
Great. I love that.
Yeah.
This conversation has been so resourceful, I will say. But before we leave, we end the conversation. I always like my guests to drop a gem. So I feel like you've dropped so many. But let's leave listeners with something that you think is useful.
Sure. Happy to do that. So when I think about some of the things that we've talked about today, and I think about the concept of against all odds, in many ways, you think about adversity or the lack of opportunity, and I think for me, maybe the odds are being, a female in Los Angeles and starting the firm. But in many ways, I've had opportunity, right? Like I've had tremendous opportunity in my life and I've worked hard for it. And so it's not necessarily that's the odds that I'm working with. It's more an issue of separating what was given to me or the definition of success that I inherited versus what is authentically me. And when you think about many people that might have that same challenge, so you think about children who are born, of immigrant families, and they want to make certain decisions based on their parents' sacrifices, or people who are climbing the corporate ladder, or people who get their version of success by chasing, what it says in social media or what's online. And parents, especially moms who have mom guilt and they're trying to live up to certain expectations. So I think all of these people have this version of success they're trying to live up to, but I don't know how many of them are stopping to think about whether that's authentically them and their own true definition of success. And it doesn't mean that you need to reject your upbringing or your culture. I mean, all of those things are gifts that were given to you by your family and, your upbringing. I think about my father who taught me hard work and grit. So this is, these are gifts that he gave me. But the idea is to integrate that with you. And really stop and think, whose version of success are you living? Yours or someone else's?
Ooh, that was deep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. Thank you so much for being here today. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Against All Odds. This was a really good episode. So thank you. We'll see you guys next time.
Against All Odds is a Hyphenate Media Group production in partnership with iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network. For more of your favorite shows, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.